Another Monday, another edition of the Helliepod, and I am with my friend Nate Burleson. Have not seen him in person in what feels like months. You know him from Good Morning Football. You know him from the NFL Today on CBS, from Extra. If you're a fan of Rachel Ray, you've probably seen him guest hosting on it. The dude's everywhere. We'll get into all that in just a minute. And I love talking to you. I love being on with you, Nate. This has been an interesting, weird, emotional time. We go from, coronavirus and everybody's scared about the future and this sickness that has overtaken America to now the death of George Floyd, and the memorial was just a couple of days ago. And we're all just kind of, it's a feeling out process, I feel like. And you made a really kind of measured, thoughtful statement in regards to, excuse me, the Drew Brees controversy. And it was about your grandfather, who died at the hands of the police. And I thought that, well, first of all, you're a wordsmith and you always have a way with words, but I appreciated it because there wasn't vitriol behind it. There wasn't, there may have been anger there, but I appreciated the way you went about it, as you always do. And I'm wondering, why did you decide to share that story at that moment?
Yeah. First, let me say I appreciate you having me on. Drew Brees, he made a statement on a platform, which I believe was Yahoo Finance. So he was obviously talking about things that weren't pertaining to football. And he got hit with a football question. And I believe he was just given a corporate answer. And Peter Schrager, who works on Good Morning Football, said, he might have been given a corporate answer from 2017, which at the time it would have been like, oh, what side do you stand on? Do you agree with the kneeling during the national anthem, or would you rather it be done somewhere else? And I think that was his stock answer. And I saw the responses, right? I saw people calling him out, saw hashtag cancel Drew and people calling him a racist. And this is what I initially thought. I initially thought, man, Drew Brees ain't a racist. Like, I met Drew on plenty of occasions, on and off the field. I played against him. I know people that have played with him. I know what he means to that city. I know what he means to the league. I know what he means to white people and black people and every color in between. So the reason I bring that up is because I kind of craft how I'm going to approach certain topics by how I feel genuinely before I say something. And if I would have just rolled the wave, which is what a lot of people do, they go on social media and like, what is everybody saying? I'm going to say that. Then I would have just been like, man, F Drew Brees, he's a bum, cancel this dude. I can't believe he would say that. As disappointed as I was that he didn't address like the very fundamental thing that Kaepernick was addressing, which was equality and police brutality and systematic oppression and injustices, I wasn't ready to just write him off. So that was my lead in to figuring out how I was going to talk about it. Once we got on the show, I thought, how can I address Drew Brees without saying what everybody else has said? Because it happened the day before and we're a morning show and I don't like repeating other people. And at that moment, I was like, all right, how can I talk to Drew and people that think like Drew in a way that they don't feel attacked, in a way that doesn't make them feel so uncomfortable that they immediately tune me out? And I just thought about the story of my grandfather, a guy that I never met, and how he also was in the service. And it's kind of like that compliment sandwich that I learned about when I was a kid. You say something nice, you put in like the meat of what you want to get across, and then you follow it up by saying something else. And that's what I did. I started off and said, look, I was disappointed that Drew is accurate as he is. He was a little off on this, but here's my compliment. I hear you and I agree with you when it comes to your sentiment about how you feel about your grandfathers and their service, and it makes you cry and tear up. And I said, Drew, I feel that. And that's me right there talking to Drew, talking to every white person, every black person, every Latino, every Asian, every person that has somebody in the service. I agree with them. So now I got you. Like, I wanted to wrap you in. And Then I went on to say, but one of those individuals that also served in my family, that I have appreciated for his commitment to this country, came back on his land in America and was approached by the police while he was walking in Golden Gate Park. And that was his last day on earth. And my father found out that news when he was a junior in high school and went to identify the body at the morgue. And he remembered thinking to himself, why does he have so many knots on his head? And as he was talking to me, we've had this conversation a few times. He said, Nate, I'll never forget that. He was bald headed. He had so many knots on his head. And I knew that he got into it with the police, but their explanation didn't match up to what had happened.
Right.
So that's what I wanted to do. And then I just followed it up by saying, Drew, you're not my enemy. That narrative that Cap was disrespecting this country was false. Like, on a very constitutional level, it should be allowed. And on a very human level, it's just about people dying in situations that are so avoidable. And it just so happened that Black people seem to be caught on camera more often. And then at the very end, I was like, so just zoom out and see life from a different perspective. That's all I'm asking you and people that might have that view on Kaepernick, him kneeling, or police brutality, because there's people that rationalize. There's people that always want to say, well, what did that person do? Well, what about Black on Black crime? Well, all police ain't bad. All white people ain't evil. And I'm always like, bro, I never said those things. Like, I'm also in the Black communities. I talk to people that have been impacted by Black on Black crime, so you can't throw that back at me. I've never been one to say white people are evil. I've always talked about how I know more good cops, more real life superheroes, than I know bad cops that act like super villains. So that was my approach, and I felt like it was placed in a way that can be received, and as adamant or militant I can be, because it's like, I'm Black, bro. We're dealing with stuff. If I make you uncomfortable, so be it. As much as I can be that, I feel like my platform isn't that. Like, when I'm on TV, I have a very diverse group of people that I'm talking to. And I want everybody from a 16-year-old to a 60-year-old to hear me and listen and digest it. I want white people and Black people. I want people that really on very opposed sides. Like, I do know Black people that are like, man, all cops are bad. I don't trust none of them. Every time I meet a white person, I just don't trust them. I know people on that extreme. And then I know white people that are like, I just don't get why y'all complaining so much. Like you weren't in slavery. And like, as much as you try to like create a parallel to today's society, I don't believe it. You guys all are either hoodlums or you guys are ball players or rappers. So like, you guys bring this on yourself. And so I know those extremes. What I'm trying to do is take those extremes and bring them together with statements that we all can kind of nod our head and just be like, all right, I didn't see it that way. So that was my approach. And it wasn't to attack Drew Brees. And last thing I'll say about this, because I'm such I'm a lover, man. I'm always trying to see the good in the situation, and I really hate confrontation. So when somebody does something bad, I'm always like, well, think about it like this. Well, he actually is a nice guy, or you shouldn't look at her that way. I wanted to put this cape on and be like, yo, I know Drew. Drew's a good dude. Like what's the big deal? Drew, after Katrina, like, Drew was in them streets.
Right.
Drew donated $5 million to feed people during this quarantine. Like, I know Black people that love Drew like he part of the family. I wanted to do that, but like, I remember thinking to myself, that's not my job. Like, as I show up a day after Drew makes a statement, that's not my job.
But
I'll
Nate,
leave it up to Drew.
Let me ask you this too. Were you worried about, if you had done that, the pushback you would have received from Black players in the NFL?
Yeah, and I don't even think it was just Black players. I think it would have been Black people. I think it would just been Black people like, bro, Nate, like, who are you putting on the cape for? Like, let him talk. Drew can speak for himself, and I knew that Drew at some point was going to come out and issue an apology and talk to the people. So it literally was a split decision in a commercial break where I was talking out loud and I was talking to Peter Schrager. I'm like, man, I think I just want to tell people how good of a dude Drew is. And Peter was like, bro, that's not really your job. Like, I think people realize that.
Right.
We're just trying to get Drew to understand that it's okay to address your privilege. And I think a while ago, white privilege would like make people uncomfortable, make white people uncomfortable, and they would think we're saying white racism. They're two completely different things. The reason I can say, like, bro, like, Drew, it's tone deaf for you to say I disagree with somebody who takes a knee, because it shows that you're not even paying attention to what's going on right now, like literally, like right now.
Right.
Like Cap taking a knee applies right now, a few weeks ago, a month before that, and a month before that, because these deaths has been happening, it seems like every month. And I think that's where I can communicate to the masses. And when I look in the camera and I say, the reason that black ball players can talk to a white person and say, man, just embrace your white privilege because you have it. Know why they can say that is because black ball players who are in the NBA, Major League Baseball, hockey, NFL, we have pro athlete privilege. And they don't want to admit that, but like, I get pulled over by a cop. If he recognizes me, whether I'm speeding, I could be a little tipsy, I could be weaving in and out of lanes. He's like, excuse me, sir, oh, Nate Burleson, hey, what's up, man? How you doing? Hey, listen, I'm a big fan, bro. Hey, listen, that 2004 season, you're on my fantasy team. You put up 1,000 yards, you know what? You were a beast. Hey, last week, I'm telling you, that move you made, man, I love you. Hey, listen, man. Hey, take care. Slow down a little bit, man, because I can't guarantee that the next guy is going to pull you over is going to let you slide. Hey, thanks, officer. I appreciate that. Or a group of people are out and you're at a club and a cop walks over because he sees some ruckus and he comes over aggressively, but he's disarmed by the fact that he knows you.
And he sees
you know what I'm saying?
you,
So, like,
right, exactly.
There's a privilege there. So if I tell my white brother or my white sister, you kind of have this cloak of a professional athlete a lot, where you might get treated just a little bit differently. And if you embrace that, and I say, now take off that for a second and see it from my perspective, that's all black people are saying. And that's not me saying you're racist, just saying your life is different than mine. And I feel like I drove home that point. And I'll reiterate this because I feel like his apology has been received. I don't know how well it's accepted. Drew is a good dude.
You know, to your point, Nate, it's funny because I'm watching shows, and this has been, we're in a 24-hour news cycle, as you know.
Yep.
And this has been a 48-hour issue with Brees. You know, first, the statements dissected, and then there's unbelievable backlash on social media. I remember going to bed that night thinking, okay, there's going to be an apology in the morning. Yep. And then he came out with the written statement. And I'm like, that's kind of weak. I want to see him. I want to hear the words. I want to see his face when he's saying it. And then he had a second apology when he came on video. And I'm a Drew Brees fan. I didn't love the backlash. I didn't love what he said. And I think what Schrager, the point that he made, that's kind of a canned statement from when this first happened, was a great one, because I think that's just kind of the feeling he's had. Like, listen, he could have massaged that in so many different ways. I've evolved on the issue, and we've had conversations about Kaepernick kneeling, and a lot of our analysts, white analysts, black analysts alike, said, yeah, I probably wouldn't do that. I'd probably go about it a different way. And I think now, initially when it happened, like, oh man, I'm just not, I wish there was a different way. I'm not really down with that. Now I'm like, you know what? I get it. I'll stand for you. And when you're ready to stand, then stand with me. And if you're not, I got you. And because it's, you have to do you and I have to do me, and we have to accept each, we don't have to, but that's me. I want to accept my teammates and my friends. So I've evolved on that issue. And we didn't get, I don't know if Brees has really evolved on it or not, because the reality is he had to make a statement. Like, it was, everything had imploded in that locker room. And when your teammates are telling you to shut the fuck up, and guys like Malcolm Jenkins, who are smart and great players, and you're the leading receiver in the NFL, and Michael Thomas, like, he had to say something. And then when he says that, everybody is trying to analyze and dissect whether he really meant it or not. I believe that he did, and he's trying to figure out how to deal with all those emotions. I mean, the reality is, when you take that little piece of what he said then you go to Twitter and there's in 280 words, people are crushing the dude. How about listen to the whole interview, right? When he talks about how much he wants to help everything and racial equality in this country, and the fact that he has, I don't know if there is an athlete ever that's done more for the city of New Orleans than Drew Brees. So listen, did he handle it right initially? No. Is he trying to make amends? Yes, I believe so. And it's not, Nate, it's not an easy thing now. He's going to have to go back into that locker room with those guys.
Right.
And as you know, the locker room is the most racially diverse workplace in the country, and it's unique. It is. The thing that's interesting to me about the locker room is just, I get a visit for a minute when I come in and, with the media and see guys, and you have conversations about everything. You have conversations about race, but a lot of times the locker room is broken down. The white guys hang out with the white guys, the black guys hang out with the black guys, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that has to do with position groups. But what's this gonna be like for Drew? If you're Michael Thomas and you're the star receiver on that team, what's that first interaction face to face gonna be like?
You know what? I think that because of COVID, maybe it's a blessing in disguise that he had this kind of screw up underneath us being in this virtual society, because he can make phone calls, FaceTime, Zoom calls, and he can have as many conversations as he needs to before he actually see these guys face to face.
That's a good point.
So, like getting back to your point, I feel like he made an apology. I'm not going to ask people to forgive. I'll let people do that on their own time. I will say this, though, when somebody makes a mistake in our society, weigh what they are and the good that they have done versus their mistake. That's how you determine whether you want to cancel somebody. So in this situation, Drew is literally leaning on his belief on the flag. Like, it's sacred to me. It means something different. When he took a knee, like in 2017, that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Like it did a lot of people, right? But you think about what he has done. So if Drew has been a fixture in the community, black people, white people alike, they all love him. He gives, like he gives within his philanthropy efforts. So like, if you take all that and then you take this blunder with an apology and another apology, and then him having time to like mend these relationships within his team and his community, like there's no way you should cancel Drew Brees. I just feel like in due time we'll all be like, we just had to get him to understand our perspective. Now, I do feel like it's going to be like this. They'll have virtual meetings. Drew's going to talk to his people. He can be like, look, my bad. I feel you. I was insensitive in the sense that, like, I didn't think about, like, Cap taking that knee and directly relating it to what's going on. I kept thinking military, American, patriotism. Like, that's on me, fellas. I love you. I rock with you. You know my heart. I think when they get in that locker room, it's not going to be awkward like, what's up, Drew? Walk past. It's going to be like, what's up, baby? How you doing, man? You good? How's the family? I honestly believe there's going to be a true embrace because they have already spoke about it. And that's going to be one of those like lasting moments when they actually do connect. And you're right about the locker room. And I'll say this, Dan, like when I first started at the NFL Network, we had our own locker room. And I was surprised how similar it was to a real locker room. Like you walk in as a rookie and there's the vets, the OGs. I remember seeing Dante Culpepper and Randy Moss. I was like, oh, shit, here they go. And they had the spinner. This is 2003. Dudes are spending money recklessly. They got the spinners with the furs and they got the jewelry. And I'm like, damn, man, these dudes is living the life. And then you got the offensive lineman. And it's like the country fed white boys. It's big, they chill, or different,
driving the trucks.
Relax. Yeah, they just chilling. They relaxing. You know what I'm saying? And they're not as like reckless with their money in the sense that like that black people, like I'm not gonna generalize, but like certain black people will get money and they're like, yo, I'm gonna get me the fancy car because I never even had anything close to that growing up. I'm gonna go buy me the watch with the diamonds. You know, the offensive lineman, they might go spend their money on stuff that we might not. A big ass farm with some horses, and they want some space in the country. So when they're done playing, they can detach from the world, right? So I saw these little pockets, and then you got the young diva wide receivers and the DBs that's constantly bickering at each other like a cat and mouse game. And then you got the kickers who literally be in their own world. Like they're like the kickers and the quarterbacks would just kind of just sit back and chill. Like they spend half the practice in the training room, reading books, playing Scrabble and board games. And I'm like, yo, this is crazy. This is like the biggest high school lunchroom in the world.
Yeah.
And then I signed at the NFL Network, and I walked in, and I'm like, oh, snaps, that's Deion Sanders. That's Michael Irvin. Oh, that's Marshall Faulk. They'll say, oh, snap. And then I look over at you, and I'm like, oh, that's like the kickers over there. Okay, they're going to say that. You know what I'm saying?
Why do I have to be a kicker, dude? That's bullshit.
I know that. That was a low blow. He's like the kicker / quarterback, you know, the kicker that can throw. You like the athletic kicker. But now it was funny because you see all these people from different backgrounds, and we would close that door before or after a show, and we would talk about things. And I love that about the NFL Network, especially in the early days. And since we're on the topic, I got to say this, because we started off talking about what's going on in society. Dan Hellie, for everybody that's listening and watching, Dan Hellie, when I first came in, was one of those individuals that I saw a direct reflection of myself in. So like the way he talked to people, the way people talked about him when he wasn't in the room, always looking at life through a very optimistic lens, not being biased towards people, willing to help even when he has a lot on his plate. And you know, I'm joking about you looking like a kicker. To me, you guys were all like the vets on the team. So I didn't have a separation between you and Deion and Rich Eisen and Michael. You guys were all like superstars to me. Like I had this like great appreciation because I watched you, I appreciated your work, and I just wanted to learn from you. And to keep it all the way real, you being a host, I was always paying more attention to you and how to be media personality more so than I was paying attention to the guys that played ball. They had a certain way of delivering their message. Like they can get up there and break down a play. They can control a segment. They can take over a whole show and only be on there for 5 minutes. That's their gift. That's the gift of being a football player. But to be the common thread throughout a show, I was watching you, watching how you wrote, how you scripted, how you read the prompter, your body language, how casual you are, how you never really panic. Like you always had your hands in the perfect place. And like being able to soak up that all the while you're giving me advice and me asking you questions and you just dropping gems on me. I've always appreciated that. And I know that I tell you that when I see you, but like that was a moment in time where I can honestly look back. And Dan, I got to keep it real with you, bro. I don't know if I am where I am now if you weren't one of the first people that I developed a relationship at the NFL Network, because everybody else is really busy with their lives. It's not like the guys, they didn't take me under their wing, but Deion at that time couldn't teach me how to be a host. He could teach me how to entertain on TV and talk about the game in a way that's digestible. You know, Michael Irvin could tell me how to project my voice and talk with passion, so people felt like they were in the huddle when you were talking.
Right.
Marshall Faulk taught me how to be very articulate and be precise, like when you're talking about something, and be very measured. So when you do say something, you snap it off and they get your point. But they weren't hosting at that point. So like having you there, I can tie in all of these things and then learn from the guy that's actually running the show. So I'm thankful for that, man, because like you're always at the top of my list, like literally the number one spot of guys that I watch and I'll always have a deep appreciation for.
Well, I appreciate that, man. And it was funny because I remember talking to you, you know, early on in the process, and you've always kind of wanted to host, to be the point guard, to be setting things up. And that was different. I had never worked with an athlete who had those goals. And I think you are the most different guy that I work with because of that, because you've always wanted to do more and you've worked for it. Like, that's the thing that's so crazy, man. Like when you first got out of the league, and we're going to get into your playing career in a minute, but I
Yeah.
want to kind of flip it because to me, your career is so fascinating. You got out of the league and you came right over to LA with us. You're living in Seattle. You worked with us for a couple of years on Total Access, and you were a sponge, man. You were always learning and asking questions. But you didn't just want to be like another voice. You just didn't want to do 3 segments, on the show every day and get, 90 seconds to talk about, why Eli Manning threw 4 interceptions and he's still the starting quarterback, for the Giants. You wanted more. And that's why you've told this story before, but that's why when I found out they were starting a morning show, moving it to New York, and that they were going to talk to you, I don't know if you remember that, in the locker room. And I'm like, Nate, they're going to call you about this show. And you had just moved to Scottsdale from Seattle, right? Your wife's family's there, and your life was kind of easy at that point, right? You flew in for a couple of days, and it's the best gig going. Okay, for former players, you can live in Miami, you can live in Jersey, you can live, in Oklahoma, but they fly you in first class. You get car service. You come do the show. Not a ton of heavy lifting. Like certain days are different than others, but your life was pretty good. And I'm like, listen, dude, the show's going to be in New York. The NFL offices are in New York.
Wait. Let me pick it up here because I do remember. I remember this vividly. You're right. I fell into this place where I was like, man, I'm finally comfortable. Like, this is the good retired life. Imagine living in Scottsdale, flying into LA, picking any one of the 5-star hotels, car service. Like, life is good. And I remember getting done with the show, and Dan's in there like a true OG. This is why I call it the locker room. It's kind of like when Lawrence Taylor was talking to Jamie Foxx at any given Sunday in the sauna. Like it's like when a young dude is listening to an OG and you know what he's saying is something you're gonna have to remember. And you're in there, you're chilling, and we're just getting undressed. For those that don't know what it's like you have a suit on. It's just like you think it is. You know what I'm saying? You take your tie off, and Dan's like, hey, yo, Nate, what's up? How you doing? I'm like, I'm good. And you're like, yeah, so, hey, listen, man. So I heard there's this morning show that they're going to do. We've had different versions of the morning show here on the network. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And I'm just staring at him like, what's Dan talking about? And he's just casually getting undressed, and he's like, I feel like they're going to approach you. And I'm like, where are you getting this from? And like a true OG just kind of like, I know things, He's like, I know things. And I was like, so what are you saying? He's like, listen, it's a very unique opportunity. You can be a guy that can tell us how great Odell's catch is, or, how the 4-3 defense is better than 3-4. You can do that forever. Now, you can literally do that for 20 years. But hosting a show is different. And if they approach you, I think you should really consider that. And but I heard it's going to be in New York, and it's going to be a change for anybody that takes a job. But I do believe they're going to approach you. And this wasn't like a day before I got a phone call. This was months before it even really landed on my lap. And for me, it was always crazy because I tell the story. I'm like, I don't know where Dan got the information from, but I'm always appreciative because when I was talking with my wife a few months later, when I did get the call, and I'm sitting there, and it's Michael Davies with this British accent, and he's just asking me if I would consider this job. And I remember talking to the wife, and she's like, it was kind of like getting a call on draft day in a weird sense. And she's like, who's that? I'm like, it's for the Good Morning Football. And he's talking to me, and I hang up, and I'm like, so they want me to take this job. It's in New York, and we're going to have to move. It's early in the morning. They're not paying me that much more, but if the show is good, they'll pay me more, and then I have more opportunities because I'm hosting and it's in New York. I could spin off that and do other things. And she was like, we were one of those families where thankfully I took care of my money, so I didn't necessarily have to work for cash. And she was like, well, you don't necessarily need the money. And you don't need this opportunity. Like, we're good, we're comfortable. And at that point, she had, and I had kind of talked myself out of it. And I walked into a bathroom upstairs, and I'm just sitting there. I didn't have to use it. And I'm looking in the mirror, and I'm like, damn, I remember Dan telling me, like, this is a good opportunity. And I was thinking to myself, they might not come around too often, especially for former ball players, especially guys who didn't win a Super Bowl, especially for guys who don't have a Hall of Fame jacket. And I left that bathroom and I told myself I have to take the job. And I didn't tell my wife, but I knew in that moment I had to take it. And the seed was that conversation we had in that locker room when you kind of gave me that advice. And I know exactly, now that I've been in the business for so long, 6 years going on 7, like I know what you were saying. You were like, look, it's one hell of a commitment. And morning shows are like restaurants. The failure rate is high. But if you succeed, it can open things up for you that you won't get just being another football player talking about football on the football network. And I've always been grateful for that advice.
Well, I mean, literally, you could not have scripted it any better. It's like every time I see something new with Nate, like we talk occasionally and text back and forth, and I'll see your Instagram stuff, and it's Rachel Ray, and at first it was Extra, right? First it was NFL Today, like the CBS. A Sunday morning show that used to be, when I was young, that was the pinnacle for me.
That was
That was one of the goals. I said, man, if I could ever host an NFL morning show. So there's CBS, there's Fox, there's ESPN, there's NFL Network. There's 4 of those shows. Let's just say there's 4 guys on each show. So there's 16 jobs. That's it. I mean, and you were able to get that CBS job due in part to the fact that you were in that building, due in part to the fact you're in New York with Good Morning Football, and then you spin off and you're doing Extra. What do you listen? Nobody does a morning show forever, and our friends at NFL Network would hope that all of you guys, because it's such great chemistry, hey, we're going to do it forever. But that's not reality, right?
Right.
What does Nate Burleson want to be? And I actually kind of hate when people ask me this question, because I'm like, man, I don't ask my buddy in commercial real estate what he's going to be doing in 5 years.
Right.
Listen, we're in the same world, right? Like, so 5 years from now, what's the goal? Like, what do you want to be doing?
I've thought about that, and it's changed over the years. After I got the NFL Today job, I thought to myself, man, this is the Tiffany Network, and this is a fixture in Sunday morning shows, like really, really prime real estate. And I'm sitting in that seat. And I was like, first I have to be the rookie and listen more than I talk. And then I have to show that I'm able to stomp with the big dogs. So once I kind of solidified myself on that show, my goals changed, because that was a huge accomplishment for me. And to be honest, the main reason I believe I got the opportunity to even audition, like you said, was proximity. I was in a studio next door. So maybe for a little while I was a seat filler. And I know that. I'm very aware of myself. But I can be a seat filler and steal the show. And if you realize that, you can pretty much solidify yourself in any field. Now, once I did Extra, I really like it. I love doing Extra. It breaks the monotony of talking about football, which I feel like I do 24/7. But talking to celebrities it's a huge blow to your ego, and not in the sense that I want to be it's not like my days are over. Like, I don't need people to tell me how great I am. Like, I prefer you to tell me how good I do as a host than how great I was as a receiver nowadays. So I don't need people to tell me how good I am. I'm talking about, it's a blow to your ego in a sense, like when I went to interview J-Lo. So she has this fragrance. We're at this like perfume shop in New York. I have to work in the morning, wake up at 4 a.m. I'm in deep New York. She's supposed to be there at 8. I get there at 7 to prepare. I've been writing notes all day. I've already worked early in the morning, so I'm running on fumes. I get there, and I'm just like going through my notes. I'm walking up and down like I used to do when I worked for Total Access. And so it's 8:30, 9. She doesn't get here, and I'm like, damn, man. 9:30, 10, 10:15, she shows up. And I understand my job at this point. This is what I signed up for. Her handler walks in, and her handler is just this young lady who has no idea who I am. And she's talking to my producer. She's like, all right, JL has 5 minutes. And my producer's like, yeah, we about 8 or 9, right? And he's trying to be nice about it. She's like, 5. And he's like, well, we'll take about 6 or 7. And she's like, 5 minutes. And then she looks at me, and I'm just chilling. I kind of got this face where I'm over it, but I'm not rude, though. And I'm just chilling. And she looks at me, and she's like, 5 minutes and walks off. And I was like,
and this is like her PR rep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
they can be tough, man.
I'm like, man, like is this what I'm going to be doing? I love entertainment, but am I just going to be just waiting on celebrities and having some 24-year-old kid just punk me and tell me to sit still and don't go over the shot clock? Like that, it kind of bothered me in that moment. And then J-Lo walks in, and then A-Rod walks in, and this crowd comes in. And, you know, I signed up to do a job. I'm going to do a job. And once she bends the corner, I flip the switch. J-Lo, what's up? How you doing? Oh, man, forever young. And, you know, I know J-Lo. I know her music. I know the whole In Living Color, the movies. And I'm doing everything. I'm going there, boom. She's a dancer. She's a singer. She's a philanthropist. I was like, oh, in this new movie, Hustlers, may I say Oscar? Like, I'm doing the whole thing, right? And she's like, oh, excuse me. And she sits down and she's like, you're new? And I'm like, oh yeah, how you doing? My name is Nate Burleson. I used to play football for a long time, but this is what I'm doing now. It's entertainment and I'm locked in. And she's like, kind of give me that football. And then I was like, so yeah, are you ready? I'm ready. And I was like, God, so now I kind of got her wrapped in just a little bit, focusing on like trying to figure out who I am and why haven't she seen me in this entertainment space.
Right.
And then I'm like, so now I add on a little bit of the flavoring, you know what I'm saying? I salt bait this thing. So I'm like this. I'm talking to my producers. I'm like, all right, so we're going to come in on the one shot, the two shots right here. J-Lo, if you want to address the camera, and make sure you guys keep the boom mic out of it. And
look at you.
Right? And she's like, whoa. Boom mic, two shot, 3, 2, 1. There's no way you play football, right? And I was like this. I don't know if I'm going to take that as a sign of disrespect or a compliment, but either way, right? I'm real smooth with it. I had to answer everything. I'm like, but either way, I'm ready to do this. And one, J-Lo, what's up, right? Halfway through the interview, she does it again. She's like, are you sure that you're a football player? You haven't been doing this the whole time? And like 18 minutes later, we in the interview, because in that moment of me just doing me and that her PR person seeing me, she's just like, keep going. This is good. Keep going.
That's perfect.
But I say all that because I ended up hopping in the car, proud of my work, knowing that's going to be a good, 3-minute interview?
Of course, yeah.
All of that time? Maybe. And I'm driving home exhausted, knowing I'm probably going to pull up to the house close to 12. I got to wake up in 4 hours and get ready to do a 3-hour show. So I don't know if I want to do this forever because, like I said, it's a blow to your ego, and you really have to swallow that. And at this point in my career, like, do I need to do that? Even though it's really fun to meet Al Pacino and Robert De Niro on the red carpet, like, mind-blowing. You know what I'm saying? Right. So to answer your question in a very long-winded way, I don't know. I did Rachel Way a couple times, and the first time I was a guest and then a guest host, and I remember walking away and telling her, and I was like, Rachel, listen, you work a lot, so if you ever need a break, I got you. And she was like, Nate, I know what you're doing. You're not slick. You know the art of being on TV. You know how to read the prompter. You know how to write. She was like, you know what? We'll give you a call. And I kind of I haven't really said this out loud, but the more that I see how Rachel Ray does her job and people within that space, she wakes up around 8 or 9. They show up around 9 or 10, and then they're done around 1, which is just like a great day, and it's not live. So, like, I want to be like kind of like how Oprah had Dr. Phil and Nate Berkus. Like, if Rachel Ray is like, you know what, Nate, I need somebody underneath my umbrella. You want your own show, and you can talk about travel, food, sports, and entertainment. We can do that. Like, I think if I can pick one thing, that would be ideal, because it will remove me from the morning grind of waking up at 4 a.m., coming home exhausted, and then also waiting on a celebrity for 4 hours for a 2-minute interview.
The one person who is the kind of pinnacle in terms of athletes who have that crossover appeal, right, is Strahan. Like, yeah. I don't know that Strahan's turned down a job in his life. The guy's just killing it, right? He works nonstop. Is that somebody that you look at and say, I want to do that? Or is that because it's the morning show and because it's that grind? I mean, obviously Strahan doesn't need to do it either. And there has to be a time frame for him at some point where he's like, all right, I'm good, or I'm just going to do something different.
Yeah, Strahan, I ran into him actually when I was working for the NFL Network, checking into the Intercontinental right there in Century City. And Strahan is walking off the elevator, headphones in. He's about to go for a run. And I'm like, what's up, man? How you doing? He's like, oh, I'm good, Nate. I see you. Man, I see you doing your thing, man. Starting off your post-career. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, give me some advice, man. Give me some advice. I'm like maybe 1 or 2 years removed from football back in 14, 15. And he said, hey, listen, man, when you first get in the league, you're willing to do anything. You're willing to work. You don't really turn down a chance to get on the field. Coach say, go play special teams. We need you to play a different position. You do it. He's like, in TV, because we make money in football and then we get comfortable talking about one specific thing, sometimes these guys who are former ball players turn to media personalities, they turn down stuff because they don't need the money. And they feel offended when their boss or the network wants them to work more and work more and work more. He's like, so keep working and don't turn down too many opportunities because they're not all going to come around. Because if you don't accept it, they're going to find somebody else. And just like football, guys are going to be younger, good looking, articulate. And there might be a few black men that can articulate the sport like us. But given the fact that the league is 75, 80% black, there's going to be more coming. And they're going to be ready because now this job is attainable with all these different platforms and all these different shows. And I'm just like, damn, he's dropping knowledge. So I've always remembered that. And then years later, I think right when I got the extra job, the New York Post did an article. Nate Burleson is the next Strahan.
That's right. I remember that.
And I was like, wow, that's a great compliment. And what's crazy about that? Just the power of his name. This is when I knew Strahan was making crazy money. An article came out with me and his face side by side. I got calls for endorsements just off an article. I was like, wow, damn, how much money is Strahan making if they giving me the crumbs? But yeah, he's one of those guys that I look up to in the sense that he's been very strategic and leveling up. Like he hasn't really made any like linear moves. It's always been like a level up. Even when he made that move, what was it with Michael and Kelly and Michael? Right. And it was uncomfortable and people were like, he didn't give us a notice. He kind of just did what was best for him. He works too much though for me at this point in my life. I have a 16-year-old, 14-year-old, 10-year-old. I have a wife who we have been spending more time together than ever, like everybody has. And I don't think I'm willing to work too much that those relationships start to suffer. At 28, I would have answered that differently. Give me every job. Let's make as much money in the world as we can. But at 38, it's just like, let's make sure who I jump in bed with from a job perspective, I'm happy with. I don't necessarily care about the money's good, but I don't care about the check. It's more about like who I align myself with.
Well, I can't wait to see the next step. I love, listen, we've talked about this a lot. I was looking through my phone because we'll put some pictures up to cover this up on the YouTube channel. And I mean, some of the outfits that you would wear coming into the building, man,
ridiculous.
It was insane. And you're still working with Baines and Baker, that suit company?
Working with Baines and Baker, still got the suit company, yeah.
Still got the suit company, still have Lion Blood.
I settled down on the wild suits though, man. I listen, I know people love stories, so I'll just weave in a few every now and then. Matt Hasselbeck in Seattle, we were getting on the bus to go to a game, and I had one of my I'm talking about a loud ass suit, crazy colors. I don't know, maybe we were playing like the Miami Dolphins, and maybe it had like orange and turquoise, whatever. And I remember him getting on the bus, and he was like, man, I don't know how many jobs you can have while wearing that suit. Maybe like a pastor at a mega church, and then a black dude, somebody in the back of the bus was like, or a pimp. And I was it was one of the moments where I was like, damn, I do got this Steve Harvey suit on with 22 buttons. I need to get my life together. So, but at that point I was like, I need to scale it back on how loud these suits are. So they're not as loud as they used to be back in the day.
Quick break now to tell you about our presenting sponsor, Viore. Simply stated, Viore is one of the favorite things that I own. They are clothes, athletic apparel, that I absolutely love. It is the softest, most comfortable, most versatile performance apparel on the market. I found this brand a couple of years ago. They opened up a store just down the road from my house. I have a couple of buddies who've been wearing this gear. They said, give it a shot. Went in, bought it, loved it. Awesome shorts, incredible shorts. The kind of shorts that have that liner inside, so all you gotta do is slip them on and you're ready to roll. Whether it's yoga, whether it's hooping, whether it's running, whether it's lounging, it all works well. VioreClothing.com/Helliepod to get 20% off. That's VUORI clothing.com/Helliepod. They have awesome joggers. Their new pant called the Ponto pant couldn't be more comfortable. Great workout shirts. Everything you need to look good and feel good. Invest in your happiness and comfort. Check out VioreClothing.com/Helliepod for 20% off now. And now, back to the show. I could talk about work in the business forever, but I generally don't like to keep guys on too long. I totally appreciate the time. I think that's the most valuable thing you can ask somebody for is their time. So I want to dig into your playing career. All right.
Okay.
Turn back the clock to 2003.
Yeah.
You're at University of Nevada.
Yep.
Coming off a year where you have 138 catches, over 1,600 yards. I think at the time it was the third most catches in college football history. Is that right?
The second most. It was 142 and 138. Yeah.
Okay. And one of the, I can't remember who it was, but I think they were at Houston that threw the ball.
Yeah, Houston, because they had the air raid.
Yeah, they threw a billion times a game. So you're drafted in the third round.
Yeah.
You put up crazy numbers at Nevada. You're going to the Vikings, who were coming off kind of a shitty year. I think they were 6-10.
Yeah.
They had Dante Culpepper and obviously Randy Moss, right? So you're like coming in there, Mr. Big Nuts in your own mind, right? But you come in Randy Moss's meeting room. Like, what was that like with Randy early on, that first interaction?
It was like walking into the Lion's Den, and Randy was the biggest, strongest, baddest lion in the world. But you know how you see an image on National Geographic of a lion just like chilling, laying on his side, and he's sitting there yawning, tongue out, but you're still scared of it, you know? And that's how Randy was. In the meetings, he was so chill and so relaxed. He never really got emotional. He never really got too high, too low. He was just like a lion. But when that game came around, it was time to hunt. And and the reason I describe it that way is because if me as a person like was literally in a lion's den, like I would be scared. And I was, as a rookie, I was shook. I didn't want to mess up around him. I didn't want to say the wrong thing. I wanted him to think I was cool, so he would be my friend. So I pretty much didn't do anything to get on his nerves. I just wanted to be good. And I remember messing up, just like every rookie, just messing up. It was two high safeties. And these two high safeties are supposed to bend in the middle. And I just kept running that streak because in college, when I went straight, the ball was coming to me. And even if it was double coverage, it was coming to me. And coach was like, Nate, two high safeties, the middle's open. You're supposed to bend that thing. And I was like, yeah, okay, I get it. And then like a few plays later, same play, I don't bend it. Nate, it's two high safeties, the middle's open. You're supposed to bend that thing. And I'm like, yeah, man, gosh. And then I'm like studying at night. We go to the next day's practice. They give me the same look. They're clearly trying to get their third round draft pick on the same page as the offense. Two high safety, middle's open. I don't bend it.
Same thing.
Nate, what the fuck are you doing? And I remember getting in a huddle, and I'm just like, the typical, every rookie has felt this, we're like, oh, man, damn. And Randy's like, hey, come on, Dummyson. You got to get it right. And I was like, I can either respond or just be happy the fact that Randy Moss was talking to me and gave me a nickname. So, like, for, like, a couple of months, he just called me, hey, Dummyson. Hey, Dummyson, go get me some water. Hey, Dummyson, you bringing the pads in. Hey, Dummyson, good catch. So, like, that was my nickname that Randy Moss gave me. And I remember just not even being mad about it. And it was one of the best times of my life, like being a rookie that Randy Moss, he saw, but you had to earn his respect by your on-field play. And that, honestly, that took like a year for Randy Moss to like really see me and respect me as like an equal, not equal talent, but an equal. And I remember my rookie year had like, a couple touchdowns and 30-something catches. And then that following year going to training camp, I was stronger. I was confident. I wasn't a rookie. And I remember that training camp, I was cooking. Like you couldn't stop me. I'm jumping over dudes. I'm talking trash. And it was like one day at training camp, like I must have went up top over two dudes and came down and kept my feet and just kept running up the sideline. Ball in one hand, talking shit the other direction, spiked the ball, boom. And I remember running back to the huddle, and he just kind of looked at me like, and it was like he didn't say anything, but he said everything. It was kind of like you arrived. And that's when I won the starting spot next to him and put up 1,000 yards. And from then on, he's been just like one of the OGs.
What his numbers that year were not good. He played like 13 games and 700 some receiving yards. What was the deal with Randy that year?
He had a hamstring. He had a hamstring. I remember he tweaked his hamstring middle of the season. And like I said, Randy didn't say much in the meetings. He already knew the sport of football. He didn't mess up much. And once he got the news, we had kind of heard it because, when a superstar gets injured, everybody has their ear to the door. Like, they're kind of like, we're waiting for news. We're waiting for somebody to come in and, hey, so listen, so-and-so tweaked his ankle. So-and-so is going to be out this much. And I remember hearing Randy Moss is going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. And that was heartbreaking for us. And I remember walking to go eat. And he was walking from the cafeteria going to the training room. And I'm walking. And like always, you don't really say much to the vets. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I'm just, like, walking, give him a little nod. And he kind of stopped me, like, and I'm like, what's up? And he's like, look. And he's looking down on me, I remember, because Randy's tall. And he was like, look, man, I'm going to be out a few weeks. You have an opportunity, a small window of time. Like, get as many catches as you can, score as many touchdowns as you can. This is your chance. This is your opportunity. Because when I come back, like, every ball's coming my way, plain and simple, And I was like, okay. And in the moment, it's like the conversation, it went in and out, didn't really sink in. I took advantage of the moment, and I went out there and had a big year. But years later, like when I became a vet and I'm talking to young guys and trying to mentor all these receivers that are there to take my position, I truly understood what Randy was doing. Randy wasn't necessarily saying, like, hey, go have a big year statistically, and maybe you can get into the Pro Bowl. And he was saying, if you put up numbers, you'll earn your level of respect, and checks come with that afterwards.
Right.
And if you do that, if you put up 50, 60 catches and 1,000 yards, like that can carry you throughout a career as long as you can continue to match that every season. And I think back at it now and I'm like, damn, he didn't have to do that. He could have just let me be, but he saw something in me, and he also taught me about the game. The game will always remember numbers. That's why when certain guys put up numbers and they end up getting these big deals, you're like, I don't know if he's that good. He might not be in your opinion, but his production needs to be paid for. So that was why he didn't have a crazy season. And then after that, a year later, they decided to trade him to Oakland, which was another crazy situation because Randy had this way of like not wanting to make you love him and like him. He wasn't your typical athlete. Like he didn't beg for your appreciation. And I think that rubbed people the wrong way. It made people upset. And the organization was kind of like, all right, let's move on, which was the most, I believe, idiotic decision the Vikings have ever made. And I say that with all due respect, but they can look back at it and be like, he did put up 23 touchdowns with Tom Brady.
Of course.
Years later. So it's like, I believe they made that mistake and they look back at it and they're probably upset. But I remember us hearing about that and our coach coming up to me like, hey, listen, man. So I know you heard about it. We traded away Randy, and I'm going to tell you this, that we felt comfortable doing that because we have you. And I was like, what? In my head, I'm a second-year player, third-year player coming off a good year. You know what I'm saying? I'm just kind of like this. Okay. I'm giving them like that nod. But in my head, I'm just like, what are you talking about, bro? Like, that is stupid. And that was kind of like, I think that was the beginning of the end of like that unit. Like,
Right.
Dante Culpepper had an injury, never was the same. Randy Moss, it took him a couple of stops before he had that great year with New England. So it's unfortunate, man, because I think that wasn't a business decision. That was more of a personal decision to get rid of Randy.
Was it because of Randy's personality? Because like Randy always came across as somebody to me who literally did not give a shit what anybody thought. Like Randy was going to do Randy, and he did it forever, right? He liked Florida State, Marshall. Like he was this country dude from West Virginia who I think is, in my opinion, the second best receiver in NFL history behind Jerry Rice. Like the dude was just sick. But did he literally not care what people thought? There had to be a little part of him that did.
Yeah, I've never met a player up until that point that had the ability to turn off the noise like Randy did. And yeah, he had this way about him where he's unbothered by people's opinion. And even the praise, which is hard to do. Think about it, in the NFL, you're a rock star. Like you're a living legend. You're a football god. So like the praise is what kills us most, is because we walk around and we think this illusion of life is real. The women love us. The money's good. We walk in and restaurants give us free meals. And like Randy didn't care about none of that. But he also didn't care about your opinion either when you want to criticize him, which I feel like is something that a lot of people are afraid to embrace. And like at a young age, I was listening to everybody, and everybody's opinion counted, and I was getting my feelings. And I had to learn like years later, like it's okay to just turn off and not care what people think. Like, especially people that really have no impact on like how you're going to live the rest of your life. Like he would make these plays at practice. I'm talking about like mind-blowing plays. The football version of N1 mixtape. You know, him and Dante had this like brother relationship. They bark at each other. They talk a lot of trash at practice. They get into it. I remember them going back and forth and them talking about who's more athletic. And Dante's like, I'm a better hooper. And Randy's like, man, you too fat. You built like a bumblebee. And Dante's like, man, you look like a toothpick with an afro. Like they going back and forth, right? But they just chirping. And then they got to this whole like, who has the stronger arm versus the faster legs. And Randy Moss is like, bro, you can't outthrow me. Like, you can't outthrow me. I'm him. I'm the fastest dude on earth. And Dante on a knee can throw 60 yards. We've seen it. Frozen rope. Boom.
Stop. And so, on a knee, throw 60 yards?
Oh yeah. Dante Culpepper had a crazy arm. Like he was from Ocala, Florida, country strong. So they would have these like back and forth. And I remember in one practice, Dante's like, all right, man, okay, you keep talking. And Moss had a 9 route, go route. Right. I remember in the huddle, Dante was like, hey, I'm about to let this thing go. And we all like, oh, snap, right? But he didn't really say it to Moss. He just kind of like, I'm going to let it go. Moss gets on his horse. And casually running, Moss is about a 4.3. Casual. Standing up erect like Michael Johnson in the gold cleats. Boom, boom, boom. Dante dropped back. Hey, Dan, he must have pulled this thing from his pants cuff. I mean, it was damn near off the ground. He reached back and right up in the air. The ball, tight spiral. It's gone. It was like fireworks in there. We're all. And then Moss running, looks up, hits a little smirk because he's like, I see what you're doing. Puts his head down. He's already like 15 yards into his route. Puts his head down. Catches it. Boom!
No way.
I said, oh. Another time, Moss is doing one-on-ones with Antoine Winfield. Quarterback's in here. Imagine quarterback being in there. In the red zone, he runs a fade, simple fade. You only run really 2 routes to practice, slant or fade. Antoine Winfield, feisty, undersized, but he's all over Randy. Antoine gets in him at the line of scrimmage because Randy would stand tall. Randy just kind of gets to the back of the end zone expecting the ball to come up here. Instead, Dante throws it like over here. He throws it like right behind him.
Behind him, right.
Most receivers, they turn like this and catch it. You know what I'm saying? If you have enough time, you could turn around this way and catch it, but that's like next level. I would have just opened my hips up, caught it, and then got my feet down. Randy is looking at this ball. Mind you, this is in the red zone. So this ball is traveling, 17, 18 yards from center to the sideline, back in the end zone. And Pep throws it hard. Like this finger right here is broken because Pep broke it at practice. So Pep throws it so hard you can hear whistling. Ball's right here. Randy goes like, well, Antoine Winfield's right here.
In his chest.
Ball comes right here. He goes like this. And catches it over his shoulder. Tracks it. Blind spot. Ball travels. Catches it. Taps his feet down. Now, I bring up those 2 plays because when I say he doesn't care about the praise or the criticism, like we would go crazy when we see that stuff. Imagine that. Like I'm so much of a fan of talent. Like I'm not too cool for school. Like, oh, that was pretty good. I'm more like yo, and I'm young too. So if you remember Magic Johnson jumping all over Kareem, and Kareem's like, chill out.
Rookie. Of course, the captain saying, all right, young buck.
Yeah, we got like 80 more games. Like that's me every practice. And we, oh my God, Randy! Whoa! Right? And Randy just throw the ball.
Didn't even crack a smile.
And go back to the huddle. Hey, we're going nuts. And I was always like, it's like Dame Lillard hitting the shot, and everybody going crazy, and Dame's the bottom pile. Like, that was Randy. And it blew my mind. So, yeah, like Randy had this ability not to care about things. And I think that that worked for him. It really did. But it's not that he didn't hear and listen. And I'll tell this last story about Randy. When we won that wild card game in 2004, we're playing the Green Bay Packers, and we we beat up on the Packers. They beat us twice in the regular season by 3 points. We go and we beat them up. Brett Favre led Packers. We're going crazy. We get in the locker room. We're like, oh my God, we just won this wild card game. And Randy had a good game. He did the fake moon. I scored a touchdown. I'm sitting next to Randy in the Green Bay locker room after a playoff win. Talk about life is good. Like these are moments that I remember. And I'm just like, damn, this is crazy. And Randy's just sitting there chilling like, hey, what's up, Nate? Yeah. I'm like, oh, all the reporters swarm, right? Boom. Randy, oh, Randy. And one reporter was like, Randy, great win. How's it feel to take this win back to Minneapolis? He was like, hey, ain't you from Minnesota? He's like, yeah. He's like, aren't you work for the local paper in Minnesota, right? And the guy's like, yeah, that's me. And he's like, I heard everything you said about us during the season.
Uh-oh.
He's like, I'm not going to answer your questions. What you think we don't read? He was like, how you going to sit here and act like you're happy for us when you were dogging us all year? He's like, don't say shit to me. And look, and all the reporters, it was like in the movies where the spotlight gets on somebody and they shrink.
Yeah.
Everybody else kind of backed up. And even me, I'm right next to him. I got super uncomfortable. I'm like, but in that moment though, like I always appreciate things later because I didn't know how to handle it. It's all new to me. I went to Nevada, Reno, like reporters and the big stage and the glitz and the glamour, paparazzi. I didn't deal with that. But as I got older, I realized like for me to know Randy personally and him to have this like this title of someone who didn't really care and didn't really care about how you felt. And somebody was like, because he's quiet, you might think that he isn't intelligent. Like in that moment, Randy Moss, like so eloquently put, like, I read what you write. And you have been the opposition all year. And because you think that I don't know you, think that I don't know your name, think that I haven't read your articles, you're going to come here and smile in my face. And either way, it makes me mad. Either you are assuming that I don't read it, or you don't think I'm man enough to call you out for fronting in front of me. And I was just like, damn, like those moments, those are like make native man moments that I take with me outside of football. And that, like, those are like my Randy Moss stories. People saw the highlights on the field. I saw a totally different side. Like, I saw the man, and that's a guy that I respect more than most people.
So Randy goes to Oakland. You play one more year in Minnesota, and then you go to Seattle. You get a monster deal.
Yeah.
To go to Seattle, and it was kind of perfect timing. And I didn't realize this until recently, but Steve Hutchinson had gone from Seattle to Minnesota. He signed a really big contract, $49 million contract, signed an offer sheet, and there were what's called poison pills in the contract, which made it impossible for the Vikings to match it.
Yeah.
And so the Seahawks did the same thing with you. They put the poison pills in the contract. Do you remember what those poison pills were, those provisions that essentially made it impossible for the Vikings to match it?
Yeah, no doubt. The way it was explained to me, because like I said, I'm going through all this for the first time. It was like a pissing contest between organizations. I remember hearing that back in 2005, 2006. And I was a restricted free agent. I go visit Seattle because Minnesota put me on a third-round tender, which was $715,000. Now, come on, man. This kid out of Reno, I'm telling my agent, like, but it's $715,000, man. Like, he's like, Nate, you don't get it. You still don't really get how this NFL works. There's a lot more money out there. Let's go visit Seattle and see what's going on. So we go to Seattle. Seattle is like, look, we want you. And to be honest, Tim Ruskell, who was the GM at the time, I believe he wanted me more than Holmgren. And Tim Ruskell was basically like, look, we're going to give you a deal. And, you know, at first it started around 10 million, and then it climbed up to like, all right, we'll give you, 3 years, 11, 3 years, 12, 4 years. Then it went to 4 years, 16 million with $4 million signing bonus. And here's where the poison pills come in. So what they did is, within this restricted free agent offer sheet, they signed in there that if Nate plays 5 or more home games in Minneapolis.
Yeah, Minneapolis.
You're going to have to pay him up to $49 million contract, which my contract period in Seattle has always been a 4-year. Wait, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, 4-year, $16 million contract. And what was wild about that is, as I'm signing this contract, I'm sitting in the GM's office and I'm like, yeah, it's crazy, man. It's a big deal. And I'm like, wait. So you're saying, like, when it scrolls across on, NFL Network and Sports Center, it's going to say Nate has a 7-year, $49 million contract? And he's like, yeah, exactly. And I was like, but my contract isn't that. Like, how am I going to explain that to my family? He's like, and my family friends. And he's like this. He's like, I don't know, kid. First world problems, bro. You're still going to be a millionaire. Like, get over it. And I was like, okay, all right, you're right. I'm tripping. Moving on. And that was it. And of course, Minnesota, who wanted me back, was like, we like Nate. I mean, he's good, but he ain't $49 million good. And that's when I learned about the poison pills. And they actually removed that because they literally could put anything. They said it could have been like, if Ragnar, the mascot, shaves his beard, you got to pay Nate $100 million. You could have put anything in there at that point. There weren't any provisions to stop that. So that was unique in its own. It's funny, like you go through the league, and it's like a school in itself. Like, I went to college. I've learned so much about life and finance and even speech communications, business administration, all these different things. But when you're in the NFL, it's its own college. And you walk out so much smarter about life because you're literally going through it. The corporate world that everybody goes through, like, you get it. That's why nothing in TV surprises me. I'm not, Dan, you know how it is. Like somebody that hasn't necessarily been through the corporate infrastructure, they'll go on the TV and you're just kind of like, hey man, this is it, bro. You can't get in your feelings, dude. Like,
Right.
it's a nasty business, And like that's what the NFL taught me. Like, learn ways to benefit from it and don't get offended when you're not. And if you can kind of understand that, life is easy. Not necessarily easy, but it's easier.
Well, that's, the interesting thing too about television, and I would guess any workplace. I've spent my whole life in television, but it always amazes me how many higher ups are afraid to criticize, especially former athletes, to coach them up, essentially.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why when you find somebody that gives you constructive criticism or just says, hey, that wasn't very good,
right,
I really appreciate that, because we all want to be better. But there are so many people who are fearful of correct. And I said, listen, these guys take coaching better than any of us because they've spent their whole life being criticized by coaches who are trying to make them better.
Yeah, it's almost a detriment if you don't, because when you first leave the game, I remember being at the network and every time I got off air, it was, hey, good job, good job. Good job. And I remember one show, I got the mush mouth. I'm fumbling through my words. I got crust in my eyes. I done stayed up all night partying. I'm like, I know that was a bad show. Like I think I froze one time and was looking at the wrong camera. All that. It was just bad.
I think I remember that show.
Yeah, I know you remember that show.
Yeah, man. It's funny how that works. And so back to Seattle, you that's home for you, right? So you get your first big deal in the NFL and you're back home, and you were going to be maybe not the guy, but you were expected to be like kind of 1B. Is that fair to say?
I was stressed, man. I was brought there, and like I said, I don't think Holmgren necessarily needed me because they had Daryl Jackson, they had Bobby Ingram, DJ Hackett. They had some guys that were playmakers. And then my first year there, I ended up tearing my thumb. Like I fell down, tried to catch myself, and my thumb that stops right here was touching my wrist. And I remember the doctor saying, listen, you can get the surgery, but you just signed here, man. Like it was kind of like a little varsity blues. So he was like, I mean, listen, you can just tape it up, wrap it up, we'll cast it up. And if you make it through the season, we'll repair it afterwards. And I was like, but I can't catch. It's my thumb. It's not like a toe or something. He's like, yeah, but like, I mean, you just signed here. Like just signing here and then sitting on the sideline an entire year for a thumb, it's hard to explain. And he was thinking how I was thinking, so it didn't take much convincing. I just wanted somebody else to say it. I was going to tough it through. And I remember just having a bad year. Like I couldn't catch. I'm dropping all kind of balls. I remember one of my teammates was like, hey, man, like all seriousness, like, hey, try these on. This is before I started wearing glasses. I didn't have glasses on. He was kind of like, have you ever considered wearing glasses? You didn't used to drop balls. I used to watch you in Minnesota. And I'm like, nah, bro, I got this thumb. Like, it's really bad. And like to the point where when it first happened, I tried to pick up this bottle of Snapple and just fell right through my hand. So I couldn't grab anything. And that added stress. Now I'm like, first year, struggling. I'm a bust. My second year, they bring in Deion Branch, who was trying to get out of his deal in New England. And I'm like, oh, I'm really a bust. Like, they already have DJ, who I know Coach Holmgren, he likes because he drafted DJ. We have Bobby Ingram, who's a beast. And they bring in Deion Branch, Super Bowl MVP. Like, I'm not going to fit in. And we had that open competition at training camp. And it was my best training camp. To the point where I remember Marcus Trufant, our cornerback, was like, Nate, like, who you mad at, bro? Like, what's going on? Like, are you like, taking it out on my young cornerbacks? Like, nah, like, I feel like I got a lot to make up for. And, like, the fact that I'm sitting here fighting for playing time, not even fighting to be number one, and they brought me here, like, I just got a lot to prove. And I remember Coach Holmgren, like, kind of telling me, like, look, it's up to you and DJ, whoever's going to win this position, who's going to be starting opposite of Deion Branch. And that training camp was my best training camp, hands down. I don't even think I dropped the ball. Vicious, strong. You know, I'm kind of growing. I'm growing into that grown man strength phase where I was like late 20s. And I remember right before season, Holmgren brought me in his office. He's like, hey, what's up, Nate? How you doing? Sit down. I'm like, I'm good. He's like, look, so I know I said it'd be open competition, and you had one hell of a camp. I can't take that away from you. At practice and in the preseason game. He's like, but I'm going to go with DJ Hackett as the starter. And I was so hurt because, like, it's one thing just having understanding that I'm here to collect a check, but I put in that work because I was trying to prove so much. And then everybody else kind of noticed my work and was like, yo, that dude's he's not only proving that he should start, he's maybe proving that he's our best receiver right now. And inside boiling, outside calm. Shake his hand. I was like, all right, coach, I appreciate that. Walked out. In my head, cursing up a storm. Walked out of his room, walked into our special teams coach's room, and I was like, look, I haven't returned the ball since high school. Like, I was a backup punt returner, like a safety punt returner in college, but like, I need to be on special teams. He's like, well, I mean, not too many like veteran wide receivers want to play punt return. I was like, I need to touch the ball. And in my head, I was thinking, if I make a play every time they throw me the ball or every time I catch a punt or catch a kickoff return, at some point the reporter's going to be like, yo, Nate is y'all best playmaker. How is he not like more involved in the offense? And within like the first 3 games, it worked out perfectly. They put me in for like 2 or 3 plays, throw me the ball twice. I'm getting busy. I score a touchdown. And then I take a punt return to the crib. And I remember it was kind of like reluctantly, all right, just give him more playing time. All right, Nate, we got plays designed for you this week. Cool. Boom. And then that season, I ended up leading the team in touchdowns and yards. And that was a great moment for me because, like, I'm not a guy that gives up or falls into a deep funk as a football player, but it just showed, like, there's ways to get your point across by putting in the work. You don't always have to complain. You know how it is. There's people that, like, take something. Feelings is equally as hurt as anybody else who goes through that same thing, but they're action people. Like, I'm an action person. And certain guys I play with were just like, oh, coach said I'm a backup. F him. And it's like, that's not really the approach, bro. Like, either you're comfortable being a backup or you go prove them wrong. So I did that. And then the following year I had the ACL. And that was another, like, moment.
Right. So you end up leaving Seattle. You had the ACL. And then the following year, you had your best year as a Seahawk, I believe.
Yep.
And that led to another nice contract with the Lions.
Yep.
You go to Detroit, and you guys you made the playoffs your second year there.
Yeah.
But other than that, it was like 6 wins, 4 wins, 7 wins. It's kind of the Detroit, like a lot of us have known, for a better portion of the last 20 years. What was the most? Well, what was the best part about being in Detroit? Because, you talk to a lot of people who maybe have never been there. It's like, there's no good parts of Detroit.
Right.
There are good parts of Detroit. I actually like Birmingham, some of those areas. Those are some nice spots.
Nice area, yeah.
But what was the best part and what was the worst part about your time with the Lions?
The best part was it's a combination between the city, like, feeling pride again because their team took pride in playing. I mean, there's dudes that literally were like, yo, this is the graveyard of the NFL. I had a dude tell me that when I signed there. First day I stepped in the locker room. Yo, Nate, I thought it was a rumor, bro. Like, he was surprised to see me, like we had both landed in hell or something. Like, he was like, Nate, you here? I'm like, yeah, bro, I signed a contract. And he is like, oh, man, that's crazy because this is where cats come to bury their careers. And he just walked off and was like eating his snacks from the lunchroom. I'm like, this dude's in a jersey? Like, it was like the bad news Bears are like the replacements or something. But they, Coach Schwartz weeded those individuals out, and we ended up like putting it together. But that second year was special. Like, we didn't obviously win a Super Bowl, but like we beat San Diego Chargers in Detroit around Christmas. And I remember the crowd just going crazy. And it's sad to say, but we kind of knew it was our Super Bowl, if that makes sense. It's like,
oh yeah,
that playoff berth was like, we might not hoist the Lombardi, but this sure does make us feel damn good because Detroit was in the midst of going bankrupt. There were certain areas of the city that looked like a bomb went off, like no joke. We're talking a place that was bustling with Motown and Ford factories at one point where people from Atlanta, New York, across the border would all come to Detroit. And I know these stories because I talk to people like OGs and older people that lived there. Like, yo, Detroit was once something special. To see like the despair there, and then you'll drive past the Ford factory, and we're talking about 2 blocks long, bro. Empty, which is eerie. It's right. Like wild. So like to give people hope, Like that was special because, certain places are used to winning. So you'll never have that feeling. I know what that feels like to give people hope. But yeah, and then playing with Calvin, just like he was something different, man. He was something different.
So, it's funny. There's so many, like Willie McGinnis, for instance,
Yeah.
who works with us, obviously. I always look at the coaches he had when he played, and I'm like, that's unbelievable. He played for Bill Parcells, and then he played for Bill Belichick, and he
Yeah.
played for Pete Carroll, right?
Yeah.
Those three coaches. He also played for Romeo Crennel, but those three coaches, I mean, they're all Hall of Famers. Like,
No doubt. No doubt.
Incredible.
It's the luck of the draw.
Yeah, and he had those experiences. Your experiences are Randy Moss and Calvin Johnson,
Yep.
two of the freakiest wide receivers to ever catch a football in the National Football League.
Yeah.
But they're very different personalities. They're both freakishly talented,
Yeah.
but very different personalities. What was Calvin like?
It was like how you see different versions of a movie and you're like, oh, okay, Bruce Willis is a good Batman. And then you're like, George Clooney, not so much. And you're like, Christian Bale, I like Christian Bale. Affleck was all right. So I say that because I was always Robin. But like I played with a version of a superhero. You know what I'm saying? I was always a sidekick.
Right.
Randy Moss was a superhero. Say he's Batman, I'm Robin. And then I go to Detroit and it's like it's a new cast. And I'm in like this new version of Batman. I'm like, I thought the last Batman was pretty good. This movie gonna be really good. like Calvin, like if Randy was an artist and he just casually painted, and when he was done, it was a masterpiece, but it looked so effortless. Calvin would draw that same masterpiece, but his approach was that painter who's vigorous. You ever see those painters like,
oh yeah,
and
just the face, making the faces while they're painting.
The face. Yeah. That's him. His way and how he went after greatness was different than Randy. Like Calvin was blessed. He's 6'5", 230. But Calvin would work in the weight room like he's the last dude on the roster. I mean, in Detroit, we would do like little combines because they wanted to see how guys came back in shape. And like receivers do the 225 and, we tap out around anywhere from 7 to 13 if you're really strong. Calvin just get on there 13, 14, 15, 16. I remember spotting him one time. He's like 17, 18, 19. And he looks around, he's like 20. And then he gets up and everybody's like, damn, 20 reps, that's crazy, Calvin. And Calvin's just like big. He's like baby Huey. He's just like, and I remember going up to him like, CJ, you think you slick, huh? He's like, what? I'm like, bro, you could have did way more than 20. And he's like, oh, you noticed that? Like, he's like, it was almost like, there was times where I'm like, bro, are you really, you might be a superhero. You're just trying to play it off and not embarrass us. Like the movie Incredibles when it's like, Dash, don't win by a lot. Like Calvin would literally scale back at practice. We're doing conditioning. And like, he would beat us by like 5-6 yards. And like at the very end, we're all like, damn, CJ, slow down. And he would kind of look back like, man, nah, y'all need to catch up because he was so gifted, but he worked every single day. And like for me to like see that and see two different versions of a type of receiver that can pump fear, like me to being in the slot. And my favorite part was looking at Randy, who had this stance of like, hey, this is light work. Like
just nonchalant.
Nonchalant, just chill. I'm out to, as soon as this ball snapped, I'm running past this corner in front of me, that safety that I think he's slick, but cheating over. I'm good. We got this. And then Calvin would get there and he's big and he'd get his low stance to make it hard for you to jam him and condense his size. And the DB be sitting there, all you see is the whites of his eyes and like him on his heels because he's like, I don't want to get physical with Calvin. Calvin's going to beat me up. And I need to get out of here because Calvin's just as fast. I seen one game, Randy beat quadruple coverage. That's a true story. And then I also see one game where I'm in a slot and I see this big-ass DN. He comes and lines up over me, and I'm like, where's he going? Oh, he must be coming out to, like, act like he's going to guard me and then blitz. And then he walked past me, and he walked out to Calvin. So they put their DN, this big-ass dude's like 6'4", to get in Calvin's way to slow him down. The cornerback was behind the DN, and then behind the corner was a safety.
So they're just going to have the DN just kind of jam him off the line?
Jam him up. They just told the DN, maul Calvin. If you get your hands on him, that'll slow him down. At least we know that play, they're not going to throw his way. But Calvin was so strong, we had a plan for that. And we still threw it to him, and he still caught it. Like, it was crazy. Like, people always ask, who's better? I got to give Randy the nod because Randy played longer, and his numbers speak to that.
Sure.
I do believe if Calvin would have played as long as Randy, we'd be talking about him as possibly the greatest receiver of all time.
Wow. Are you surprised that he walked away?
Nah, because history repeats itself. Barry Sanders was going through the same thing, and I think Calvin was tired of being banged up and not seeing the reward at the end of the season. I do feel like if he was playing for Bill Belichick, he would have played 13, 14, 15 years for the simple fact that Calvin was the perfect Bill Belichick player, uber intelligent. I think he graduated with an engineering degree from Georgia Tech. Mother a doctor, father worked like for the railroads in some capacity. So a blend between high intellect and blue collar attitude. And then given the fact that Tom Brady's ball placement would have been so perfect that you wouldn't have seen Calvin Johnson jumping up in the air and landing on his body time after time. Like, if you look at his career, he fell a lot and got hit a lot. You can't show me too many examples of when Tom Brady had his receivers like getting rocked or climbing up in the air and falling down 9 feet. And that was CJ, because certain receivers will look at a ball and be like, I ain't gonna get that. CJ look at a ball and be like, well, I guess God blessed me with the tools to jump up and get it. Here we go. Boing. And he would go get it and fall down and all awkward and body, and they'll show up for practice, limping through practice. And I'm like, CJ, I get it. You're a leader, but we need you for the game, bro. Like, stop trying
rest up.
I'm not trying to be tough. I'm trying to lead by example. CJ, chill. Nate, come on, man. I remember walking to my coach and I was like, hey, Schwartz, hey, Scott Linehan, CJ's done. Like, what are we doing? We didn't know it was that bad, Nate. Yeah, it's that bad. Hey, I'll take all of his reps in mine. CJ, you good? He'll reluctantly walk off the field. Like, that was CJ. Now imagine having that dude, that attitude, that high of a football IQ on a team that wasn't wearing them down.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, and listen, so many tough years there in Detroit and so many years where the organization was somewhat dysfunctional.
Yeah.
And the end was so acrimonious for them. How,
no doubt.
Right? Like they made him pay back part of that signing bonus.
Still to this day.
Yeah, he still hasn't. Yeah, absolutely. He still hasn't kind of made amends, or they haven't made amends with him. I hearken back to a story that just a couple of weeks ago on this podcast, Reggie Wayne told that he, told us a long time ago at NFL Network, but you've heard it. He signed with the Patriots. He was there for 2 weeks. He got a $450,000 signing bonus. After 2 weeks, he's like, he just wasn't feeling it. He knew he was done. He got to that point and he went to Belichick and said, hey, coach, I don't want to take a spot from one of these young guys. Like, I just want to tell you, like, I'm good, man. I think I've had a career that I'm happy with, and I'm going to call it quits. And he goes, okay. And he goes, and I know you guys paid me. I'll give it back. And Belichick says, keep it. He says, keep it. He was there for a cup of coffee, and the Patriots let him keep, $400,000 plus signing bonus. And the Lions, the greatest receiver they've had in franchise history, and they're battling over this at the end.
Who never complained, who never talked about being on another team. I used to tell Calvin, you need your own shoe. You should be getting more money. You're the best receiver. He never talked about cash. I'm talking about a dude that did it the right way. And it wasn't necessarily at the end of it, and they're like, oh, now you got to pay us back. What really made Calvin upset was when rumors started to float around that his body was getting banged up and he was considering retirement, somebody from the Lions finance department floated out, well, if he does, he's going to have to pay back. And I think that really just like sent things in motion for Calvin. Like, he kind of heard it secondhand, and it must have been confirmed from somebody. And he was just like, really? I'm considering retirement? And the first thing you're saying is I'm going to have to pay back money, not let me convince you in any way that I can not to retire. I think that's where the disconnect is. And I feel like the Lions need to make amends. And it's not even about the money. I think they need to apologize, reach out to him, and send him a check, because you want a guy like that to come back and show his face in the locker room. He's such a fixture there.
Well, and for years, Barry Sanders didn't go around, and now, they're on good footing. You Google Nate Burleson and pizza pops up in like the third line, right?
Yeah.
So that was one of the things that people in Detroit will remember. And it's a car accident you got into because you were trying to save a pepperoni pizza.
Yeah, yeah.
Tell us that story again, because
right?
Classic.
It wasn't one slice of pizza, Dad.
It was a whole pizza. Two of them, maybe.
It was a bunch of pizza. So what happened? Happy's Pizza is the pizza spot. Shout out to my guy, Happy. Coming off a game where the Lions played against the Washington Redskins, and I put up like 117 yards or something like that. And at that point, Matt Stafford and I were leading the NFL in wide receiver quarterback completion percentage. So I was in the zone. And I remember our coach, Sean Jefferson, who played in the league as well, he was like, Nate, you're in the zone, stay there. Like, stay there. And I was like, I'm gonna have a Pro Bowl year. At my age, I'm gonna have a Pro Bowl year. And so I'm out having a good time. We're eating, watching Monday Night Football. Just like any time, drinking, relaxing. And then he always gives me food. He's like, take home food to the fam. And I'm like, all right, cool. Let's just sit back, relax. After the game's over, I sit, I chill, I hydrate, because I don't like driving tipsy, right? Nobody does. So as I'm leaving, I got 2 pizzas, I got wings, I got ribs, I got sides.
In the passenger seat.
In the passenger seat. This is like midnight, 1-ish. So this is way after the night it started, right? Because we have to wait a while for me to just like make sure if I hop in a car, I'm not close to being sober, but I'm sober. And it's funny because right before I got on the freeway, there was this hookah spot that I would always go to that these young dudes ran. And so I popped in there because I was supposed to go by earlier, but I didn't. And they're like, Nate, what's up? Oh my God, you got a good game. It's going to be our year. Yeah. Let's take a shot. Because I would always go in there, smoke a little hookah, and I would take a shot with them.
Right.
And I was like, nah, not tonight, man. I've already sobered up. I'm straight. Like, I don't want to shot a tequila right before I go to bed. I got to drive home. It's like 20 minutes. Come on, let's take a shot. I'm like, nah. Like, I promise I'll come back tomorrow. Come on, y'all know I'll get down. I'll come by tomorrow. And I honestly believe, like, me not drinking in that moment, it probably saved me from getting a DUI. Right. Because, one, it would have been fresh in my system and fresh on my breath, and I might have been tipsy if I would have just banged down a couple of shots and got in an accident. So I didn't take a shot. I hop in the car, and all this pizza, not buckled up, I am, and I'm listening to the new Drake album, Take Care. And this is auxiliary time. This isn't Bluetooth time. This is, back in the day.
Oh, yeah, you got to plug it in, baby.
I'm plugging it in, but I'm driving with my knees. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to plug in, driving my knees, and I'm looking down to the song, and then I look up as soon as I get on the freeway, and I'm right behind this van, this gray van. So instead of me just hitting the brakes like I should have, because I thought if I hit the brakes, all this is going to crash down, I reach over and I put my right arm over the food, and then I yank the wheel, right, to avoid this car. So I do it, and I'm good. It's a little slick out. I'm headed towards the concrete medium, and then I'm like, damn, let me straighten this car out. I yank it back. I'm headed towards the embankment now. I yank it back one more. I wish I would just went in the embankment. I yank it back one more time. The car's straightening out like this, and I'm like, oh, I got this. And then it kept going. I was like, I don't got this. Boom, boom. And I'm holding on to this car 10-2. This arm slips off. My face is the steering wheel. This arm locks on. And then I get out the vehicle. Every door is smashed. My car's totaled, except for my driver's side. I kind of bang it open. And I get out. I see blood on my sweater. I'm looking around. And I'm moving my legs up and down. And I'm like, all right, my money makers are good. I run with these. And I look at my hands, and I'm moving my hands. This one's going like this. I'm like, all right. This one's going like this. And I'm like, man, what's up with my hand? I had a sweater on. I pulled down my sweater, and these two bones are shifted. They're not out of the skin, but they're shifted. You can see this scar still right here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All the way down there. There's a plate in there about 14 screws, and then
Right there on the
there's
underside of the forearm there. Yeah.
right there, there's a small plate and about 9 screws. So it's completely shifted. And I remember sitting there, and this is Nate Burleson's mindset about life. This is why I'm team first over everything. Like I was having a great year, and leading up to that night, I was like, I'm gonna put up 1,000 yards. I'm gonna have a Pro Bowl year towards the end of my career. It's gonna be perfect. In that moment, I wasn't even thinking about myself. My first words out of my mouth were, "I just fucked up our season."
Mm.
That was my exact words. Because at that point, when Calvin was double covered, me and Matt was just on a different wavelength. Like it was like, Calvin's not there, Nate, I got you. Boom. And I knew that we could ride that into the playoffs. And then I'm sitting there just like waiting for the police to come. I called a wife. I called a team, which is one of the most embarrassing, difficult calls I ever had to make. Knowing that I'm telling them I'm probably going to have surgery within the next couple of days. I'm going to be out. And at this point, I don't even know if I'm going to come back this year. And I'm sitting there just pacing back and forth. Somebody pulls up and they're like recording me, and they see me like pacing, but they don't know I have my phone in my hand. So it looks like there's a TMZ like video or something of me walking around. And I'm like looking, I'm like this, and I was just talking to the team. And I remember this white dude rolls up and he's like, "Hey, what's up, man? Nate, how you doing?" I'm like, "I'm chilling, man." He's like, "You all right?" I was like, "Yeah, the police are coming." The ambulance comes. "All right, man. Love you as a player, man." And then a black dude pulls up and he's like, "Hey, what's up, man? You all right?" I'm like, "Yeah." He gets close. He's like, "Oh, Nate Burleson, what's up, bro? I appreciate you, bro. On and off the field, man. You mean a lot, man. You're deep in the community out here." I'm like, "Yeah, man. That's what's up." He's like, "You good?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good, man. I got some people coming. I got the cops coming, all that." He's like, "All right, cool, because I don't need to be here when the cops come. I'm out." And I was like, "That's so Detroit right there." So then he leaves, and then the police come and they ask me a question. They ask me what happened, and they keep asking you the question to see if your story's going to change up.
Right.
And I don't know if he necessarily believed me. He opens the door. Drake is playing. The food is smashed on the bottom, and he realizes like, "Oh, this dude's telling the truth." I get there, and the story just keeps unraveling. I get to the hospital, and they have to take my arm and put it in this harness and yank it up so the bones can sit on top of each other correctly.
Oh.
And I remember this nurse was just like snatching it. And I'm like, "Damn, this dude's hella aggressive. Like, what's up?" And I remember just like looking up at the nurse, and he was talking to the officer. He's like, "We need to take a blood test." And the officer's like, "Already did the sobriety test. And he's not tipsy, or it's a one car accident." And he's trying to explain to him, he's like, "No, I need to do it anyway." And he's like, "I already did it. Like, what are you doing? It's not even protocol." And I was like, "What's up with this nurse? Grabbing my arm all funny, talking to this officer, trying to go against protocol." I kind of knew what the nurse was doing. Like maybe they just wanted this story of like an athlete having a DUI. And I look up, and no joke, this nurse is wearing a nurse hat with Green Bay Packers logo on it.
No way. I forgot that part of the story.
Yeah, and he looks down at me and he's like, "Hey, man, I know it's not good to say right now, but I mean, I'm happy you're out because you're tough to stop." And it was like, I guess not like I'm for the jokes, but like in that moment, like
You're like, "Thanks, Dick."
yeah, exactly. So I had the surgery, and in so many ways, I realized that was the beginning of the end of my career, because I was 30, 31, 32, and I'm dealing with recovering from an ACL. I broke my leg a couple of years prior, and I have my arm now. I knew I had to start thinking about the next chapter, and here we are.
And here we are. And you went to a training camp, but you were injured kind of off and on throughout with the Browns. Johnny Manziel.
Hey, and
remember how much we talked about him that first year?
Oh my gosh! And another great receiver, Josh Gordon.
Oh, that's right.
Like Randy or Calvin. I was like, oh man. I done shook the dice and went 3 for 3 on the sidekick. But
unfortunately, we've never seen that Josh Gordon again. Hopefully we will at some point. All right. It's we've been going on forever. I'm going to hit you with some 2-minute drills, just some quickies. Okay. Just some football stuff and some Nate stuff. So many good ones. Who's the best wide receiver right now in the league?
Best wide receiver right now in the league is Tyreek Hill.
The best?
It's a little bit of a twist. I just feel like he is the most dangerous, and it also has to do with his quarterback. So I can say Julio, of course, when Antonio was playing. Mike Thomas is a phenomenal talent, but I mean dangerous though. Like Tyreek Hill is a freak of nature.
Yeah.
Mike Thomas and Julio will forever be consistently in the conversation. But as far as dangerous, going with Tyreek Hill.
All right, quarterback with one throw on the line. Originally, I had best quarterback here, but it's Patrick Mahomes, my opinion. But one throw on the line to win the Super Bowl. Who's your quarterback?
Aaron Rodgers.
I like it. Can't argue with it at all. The coach you would most want to play for right now?
Andy Reid, Big Red. Big Red. It's not even about the Super Bowl. It's before that. He just seem cool?
Yeah.
Just seem like he gets it.
Just like your uncle or your dad. Like,
yep.
I would love to play for Andy Reid. Where should Cam go?
Oh, Cam should go to I think Cam should go to Oakland. And I know they have Derek Carr and Marcus Mariota, but let's just say that it's the end of Derek Carr's career there and it's a pit stop for Mariota. I want Cam to go somewhere and like literally and figuratively wear the black hat. He was Superman for a while. Now, like he turned that corner. Remember Cam was Smiley Cam with the baby face. Like, you know, he's trying to make everybody happy. Now that everybody's kind of turned on Cam in a sense, like, put on that black hat, bro. Like, be the villain. Like, who cares? Embrace it.
That would be one hell of a quarterback for him, man. Mariota, Carr. Wow, I would pay money to see that. The person that you have interviewed, you talked about the J-Lo interview earlier in the pod, but where you kind of got shaky voice, like you were like legit nervous, right? You've interviewed a lot of people. Is there one where you remember like it took you a second? Like I'll give you, I was a commencement speaker at my high school, you know, several years back. And I remember it took me like, it felt like forever, but it took me like 10, 15 seconds to like exhale and compose and then be myself. Is there somebody that you've been like that with an interview?
Yeah, I was on the red carpet for The Irishman. And, you know, the cast rolls up and I'm talking to everybody. De Niro has a very matter-of-fact way of talking to you, where you don't have time to get nervous. He's very direct. Just boom, boom, boom. But then Pacino rolled up and I'm like, hey, how you doing, Mr. Pacino? My name is Nate. Nate, I know who you are. And I was like, what?
That's awesome.
And immediately I started getting sweaty on camera. And I was like, wait, time out. And I looked at our people at Extra and I was like, time out, give me a second. Hold on. Seriously? Do you know who I am? And he's like, yeah, of course I know who you are, man. You do the sports show during the week and also the Sunday show on CBS. Come on. I'm a football guy. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? And he was like, and I was like, who's your team? He's like, you know, I can't say that. And then he walked away. He's like, jeez. And like, that was crazy to me. It still is. Like Al Pacino knew who I was.
That's badass. Last question. NBA, the plan's in place, man. The league's coming back. Your brother's still working with the T-Wolves, right?
He's working with T-Wolves, yeah.
T-Wolves. Well, he ain't coming back. They don't have to worry about that. They're not going to be one of the 22 teams, right? Like, right. Have you talked to your brother, though, about what that's going to be like, or is he just so far removed because they don't have to worry about that?
No. He actually he was working out people, but they would do it like one coach, one player at a time, and then they rotate hour on the hour. But like he was dealing with that, and then what happened with George Floyd and the riots, and he was like, "Yo, Nate, Minnesota is crazy right now."
Yeah.
He said the people are upset, and we're sitting here still trying to work. The Timberwolves, because they work downtown, the Timberwolves are like, "Yo, employees, you get a hotel on the outskirts because we don't want you down here." But he's going to be training, still training players. Because they had so much time off that when the season does return back around again after this tournament, they want their guys ready.
Is Kevin older than you?
He's 2 years older, yeah, but we look a lot alike. People thought we were twins growing up.
So, like growing up, you were always Kevin's little brother, and he played in the NBA for a couple years. Like, at what point did he become Nate's brother?
The moment that I established myself as Randy Moss's number 2. because that was like his second year with the Bobcats, and then he went overseas. So when he came back from overseas, he came back from Germany, and all of a sudden it was like Nate's his big brother, because I grew up overnight. So yeah, that's my dog.
Dude, that's awesome.
What were you gonna ask? You gonna ask about the NBA? A question? You gonna give me a player or a team? What were you gonna ask me?
You want to get into it a little bit? Here's my thing. I'm out here in LA. Like it's gonna be. In my opinion, the two teams that are gonna come out of the West, right? If you have those two, it's gonna be the two LA teams, Clippers and Lakers. Give me two teams out of the East that you like.
Ooh. I'm gonna say the Bucks.
Sure.
I really like them. And I'm gonna say don't sleep on Toronto. It seems like they're building something special. And I thought that Kawhi leaving was gonna cripple them, but the simple fact that they're still in the conversation, you can't count out the champs. Somebody that hoisted up that trophy last year. Let me ask you a question, since we're coming off the heels of we're coming off of The Last Dance, and all the talk is about Michael Jordan, and that's our era. You know what I mean? Like we know about that. So I'm gonna throw out 4 names.
Okay.
You give me the best player, the most impactful, and your favorite out of these 4. All right. Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So best player, just pure player, most impactful, just however you want to take that, and then to you, who do you like?
Yeah, well, so I think that the best player was Michael Jordan, and you can have the LeBron MJ debate, all you want. Like, listen, LeBron can he can play 5 positions on the basketball court. Like, Michael couldn't do that. I just think that what Michael did offensively and defensively, people forget he was the defensive player of the year as well, is amazing. Now, I had David Falk on the podcast, a few weeks ago, and when you say most impactful, Brand Jordan, like nobody's more impactful from a business perspective than Michael Jordan. Now, the one thing Jordan did not do, obviously, with his famous Republicans buy sneakers statement, was he basically had zero impact from a social standpoint. From a business standpoint, it was huge. LeBron, I think, out of all those people you name, is going to have the biggest impact socially because of what he's doing. And what was the third one?
Third one is just personal preference. Just out of those guys, like, who did you appreciate just watching?
Yeah, I loved. Michael as well. I appreciate. To me, LeBron is when I'm standing on a football field and I'm watching an NFL game in person, field level. The most impressive athletes to me on the field are the defensive ends, the guys that weigh like 270 and they're running like a 4.8, and just how fast they move on the field. And to me, LeBron, now he's like
the version of that.
Like he's basketball's version of that, right? Like it's unbelievable to me, a guy that is that size moves like that on the basketball court. Like I used to say that about Shaq. Like I thought Shaq was very underappreciated for his overall athleticism. You know, he was all about power, but the reality was Shaq was a ballerina on the basketball court, man. Like the way he moved was incredible.
Yeah, I remember my brother, he was telling me, because LeBron's about 260 now. He said, this was years ago, early in LeBron's career, maybe middle part. He said, Nate, there's a rumor going around that LeBron's 285. And if that rumor is true, it's crazy because he's the fastest player in the NBA. Like, you remember when LeBron used to take the ball from baseline?
Oh, yeah.
Like 4 dribbles and he's at the rim and beat everybody. And he was like, so just put that in perspective right there, how freakishly gifted LeBron is to be at that weight and moving that fast and jumping that high ahead at the rim. Like LeBron is a freak. And what's crazy, still doing it almost 20 years later.
Yeah, no, I mean, especially at that age. You know, the one thing, Nate, that always bothers me about the one criticism people have for LeBron, he's not a killer. He's not a killer on the basketball court. He doesn't have that mentality. And I never played at the level that you did, but I'm like, no, he's different than Jordan. He doesn't ride his teammates like Jordan did. He's more of a distributor.
Right.
But if LeBron wants to kill on the court, then he
You do
kills on the court. Like,
it. Do it.
I don't think that's an accurate
Well,
assessment of who he is as a player.
people never said that about Magic. Like, and Magic wasn't the one that was like, I'm gonna take this last shot because I'm the most gifted on the court. Magic was the most gifted on the court majority of the time,
Right.
but he was like, I see the game differently and I can make other people better. That's why LeBron is always going to be one of my favorites, because I grew up loving Magic Johnson, and LeBron is Magic Johnson, but with crazy athleticism.
Totally.
So yeah, I agree with you. I think he does have the killer instinct. The killer instinct is also being able to have discernment on when to deliver the ball to somebody else and allow them to make the shot.
Yeah, and but that's one of the things that made Kobe so great too, was that he did have that, but he was also
he was all killer instinct though. It was like
I mean, he never turned it off. Yeah, all the time, 100% of the time. And so that was obviously what made him so great. But he also like Kobe had no conscience. He could shoot 40 times a game and not feel. I mean, he's like, dude, you're open, but I'm gonna make it. I mean, I trust myself to make it before you do, and it's just a different mentality, right, when you're on the basketball court.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And you know what? Watching The Last Dance and thinking about how Kobe approached life, and I'm pretty sure when we watch Tom Brady's documentary and we see behind the scenes how competitive he really is, I think that is something that, as fathers, we can talk to our kids about and be like, look, it's okay to be casual about certain things, but success rewards those who are addicted to greatness. And if you're addicted to that energy, I feel like whatever you're doing, sports aside, it'll reward you. You know what I mean?
Let me ask you this from a father's perspective then, because I get so frustrated sometimes with my kids, because there's so many. Listen, we live in Southern California. We're 3 blocks from the ocean. My son can walk down and go surfing. My daughter can throw a little lacrosse ball with their friends. Like, there's not that drive in my mind for them to be great at any particular thing. They just want to live.
Yeah.
And I think back, and we always sound like old heads when we say it, right? But every day, it was playing football, with your buddy in the street. Like, I would toe tap, just inside the curb, keep my feet in bounds. Or I was hooping every day during the summer, and it's like pulling teeth to get them out there to do that sometimes.
And bickering and barking with your friends, almost getting in fights. Like, we developed that killer instinct early because we were just competitive like that. I have the luxury of having 2 kids that are very close in age, and as a father, I at moments I pit them against each other because I have to. I can't go out there and beat them up. I have to force this competitive nature. And then when I go coach their teams, these little kids that are spoiled and got every shoe and they never missed a meal and their houses are all big and they haven't dealt with any type of adversity, I tell them, if you haven't challenged your friend, or you haven't got to the point where you were mad at them while playing, or you guys haven't had a confrontation where you were nose to nose, face to face, talking about the moment that you were just in from an athletic standpoint, from a competitive standpoint, then you're not really his friend. And I remember saying that, and it kind of sunk in. They were like, damn. I was like, because your friend's going to be in a situation, and because he was never challenged before, he's going to cower. And you guys are both at fault. And you guys are both cowering in those moments. And I was like, and it's not just about sports. It's also about when you become a man and you become married and if somebody flirts with your wife. I had this crazy conversation with my boys, and it all stemmed from him being in the game and, quite frankly, shutting it down because the kids were older and athletic. And luckily it was a long ride home. I started talking about sports, ended up talking about life. And I kept having those until they understood it. Now that at 16 and 14, it finally sunk in. I just didn't give up on them. I guess that's the best advice I can give. I didn't give up on those conversations. They didn't understand it when they were younger, but as they got older, they're like, Pops, I feel you. You know what I mean?
Dude, it's so funny, man. 16, 14. Your daughter's how old? 10?
10, yeah.
10. I have almost 13. My son's almost 13. My daughter just turned 14. And it's amazing, man, to watch. The whole parenthood in general.
Yeah.
Every step, I think, is better than the last one. But now, they're becoming men and women, and you're having to worry about all the issues. What point are they going to start, trying alcohol? What point are they going to start having sex? You your son are like, they're men now, and whether it's in the classroom or, on the basketball court or on the football field, whatever that is, it's a challenge, man. Like being a father I love hearing stories from other parents because I never know if the way that I'm doing it is the right way. And I don't know if there is a right way. I think there are many right ways.
Exactly. And it's just communicating. I'm just communicating so they know whenever they do want to try something, whether it's something they should be doing or they shouldn't, I just want to be a person they can talk to and not afraid to talk to.
Yeah, no, I feel you, man. Yeah. Hey, I'm gonna let you go. We've almost gone 2 hours. I so appreciate the time, my friend. You got a big weekend coming up.
Hey, see now you can cut this up and put it in 1,000 pieces.
We're gonna just every Nate Burleson soundbite is a promotable soundbite. We love that.
I appreciate you, man. Appreciate you.
Always, man. Always continued success. I'll talk to you soon, buddy.
All right, brother.